Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our post-CAB press conference. Today, Cabinet received the final report of the Interagency Committee on the evaluation of proposals submitted in response to the request for proposals for the supply of up to 130 megawatts of electricity generation from renewable energy resources. This report was considered, and actually it is still under consideration by other members of the Cabinet, the FNGP. So therefore, contrary to reports, no final decision was taken as yet. But however, the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, on completion of the consideration of the report, will issue a statement in the Parliament in the near future. Today I have with me the Minister of Education and the Acting Minister of National Security, who will address us today. We will start with the Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Minister. Good afternoon, members of the media. In the public domain now, there is some concern over the closure of the Claxton Bay Anglican Primary School. And today I wish to share with the media and by extension the general public what are the circumstances, first of all, that led to the closure, and two, what the Ministry of Education is doing to ensure that our students are not left without the required tuition. First of all, I think it's important for me to explain that the Claxton Bay Anglican Junior School, which has been closed, is in fact a junior school. In the Claxton Bay area, there are two schools, the junior school and the senior school. Both are primary schools. Both have separate principals, both have separate administrations. The junior school caters for students from infants 1 and 2 and standards 1 and 2. So that is the school that has been closed. The senior school will cater for students in standards 3, 4, and 5. So I think it was important for me, first of all, to make this distinction. Secondly, the school is owned by the Anglican Board. Let me repeat, the school is owned by the Anglican Board, and it was built to accommodate approximately 150 students more than 100 years ago. In fact, today I was trying to get the actual date when the school was opened, but the Anglican Board was not in a position at this time to give me the exact date, except that they have confirmed that the school was built more than 100 years ago. So you can understand that the school is aged, it is very old. The Anglican Board, recognizing that there were some structural defects in the school, had written to the Ministry of Works asking the Ministry of Works to conduct a structural inspection of the school. This letter was sent to the Ministry of Works sometime before school reopened, and on the 5th of September, the Ministry of Works carried out the structural inspection of the school. Afterwards, the Ministry of Works sent their report to the Anglican Board, and that report was dated the 17th of September, just a few weeks ago. And that report advised that the school should be closed because of structural defects. So there were many structural defects that were identified by the Ministry of Works. And as a result of this, OSH, on and around the 23rd of September, issued a prohibition notice asking that the school should cease operations in that building. So that is the situation that led to the closure of the school. Since then, the Ministry of Education has been in contact and in direct communication with the Anglican Board so that we can come to a solution to ensure that our students continue to receive the quality education that we are determined to provide. We have visited, our officers have visited a number of schools, a number of areas, a number of buildings in that area. And tomorrow, there will be a formal visit to certain areas so that we can determine what is our next step. That meeting tomorrow will involve the principal of the school, members of the Parent Teachers Association, the Anglican Board will be present, the National Parent Teachers Association, and MTS. This team will be looking at all the possibilities and all the areas whereby we can house these students even on a temporary basis. In addition to this, our Director of School Supervision has given the task to the line school supervisor to find alternative accommodation as in the interim. Again, our major goal, our major purpose is to ensure that our students are not left without the opportunity of getting an education for too long. It has been reported to me that the Anglican Board is suggesting as a temporary measure that there should be a shift system involving the senior school and the junior school. And the mechanics of that are being worked out at this stage. However, in spite of that, a number of buildings, as I have stated before, have been identified, including the former Petrotrin Sports Club and the other buildings in the surrounding area. And once a suitable building has been found as an interim measure, I keep saying, that will be used to house the students. I need to make the point that the school is owned by the Anglican Board, and nothing can be done unless we have the concurrence of the board. And this is why representatives of the Anglican Board will be present tomorrow so that we can come up with a solution that will meet the requirements of all. We have been told that there are a number of buildings around the area that might be suitable, and we'll be looking at those buildings to determine whether they can house the students. At present, the enrollment of the school, as I've been told, is approximately 161 students. So we have to find space for 161 students, as I said before, ranging from Infants 1, Infant 2, Standards 1 and 2. It is hoped that before the end of next week, that this matter will find a solution, a temporary solution, while we look ahead at a more permanent situation. And again, depending on the visit tomorrow, we'll determine whether a new school has to be built or whether an annex will be constructed on the site of the senior school, or what are the other alternatives that are available to us. But at the moment, we are working resolutely to ensure that our students are not left without the required tuition. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Garcia. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, as you know, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is the premier organization, the only one, as a matter of fact, structured under the law to deal with and directly with the issues of the prevention and detection of crime in Trinidad and Tobago, a very important institution it is. As you might know, Trinidad and Tobago faces a very burgeoning and pressing problem of crime. It is to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service that we look for our protection and, as I said, for the prevention and detection of crime. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is in the process of rebranding itself, rebranding its work, aiming, no doubt, towards being a world-class organization with cutting-edge technology for its own sake on the one hand, but more importantly, and equally importantly perhaps, is to respond to the national challenges of crime as I have just described it. In that regard, it is looking towards improved systems of management, accountability, and performance measurements. New skill sets are obviously required in order to do this, as has been unearthed by the manpower audit that we commissioned and which report we are now activating in relation to the police service. Deputy commissioners of police, as you may know, act as commissioner from time to time and must in their own right, and for that reason display leadership skills, technical police skills, experience, and that sort of even communication skills, and those assets that are necessary in modern policing today. It is against this background that today Cabinet considered, approved, and confirmed the upgrade of the job specifications for the position of Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioner of Police, in particular to that requirement of a master's degree as a pre-qualification for holding those offices. Cabinet agreed generally to the realignment of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, but in particular, the positions of Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioner of Police will be held by persons going forward who must have, as a basic requirement, a minimum of a master's degree. In addition to that, we agreed and, as I said, confirmed the formalization of some specialist units in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service based on the recommendations of the Manpower Audit Report Commission and, of course, the Police Commissioner more recently. In that regard, we have agreed to the formalization of a white-collar crime unit, the Special Operations Response Team, which you by now would know, SORT, a gender-based violence unit, particularly with a view of dealing with the issues that face us around women and children, a schools services unit, because we have found in the national community a lot of challenges coming out of the school system with children, and largely sometimes away from the school compound to and from school, but involving school children generally. And of course, a specialized investigations unit, because our detection rate is not what it ought to be. And it is considered that a specialized investigation unit will add great value to this. I would like as well to indicate that we took the decision today in the Cabinet and we approved the proposals of the Office of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs to further amend the Bail Act, which we recently dealt with, which would restrict the right of persons who fall under its ambit in certain specific circumstances to bail as it relates to firearms offenses. You will know, because you reported recently, the police, after tremendous intelligence gathering and hard work, found 9 AR-15 automatic assault weapons at some location in the Belmont area in Port of Spain. The offenders were, of course, arrested and charged, and as the law requires, the Constitution requires, they were taken before the magistrate for the initial proceedings, criminal proceedings. The police have expressed great shock and horror and a level of demoralization at the fact that no sooner did these perpetrators appear, they were granted bail, I think in the sum of $500,000. The police complained to the government that this has a very demoralizing effect on the police service, And it was hoped that these perpetrators would have been restricted a lot more than actually transpired. As a result, the Office of the Attorney General, led by my colleague, Mr. Arawi, and I, and the team there, we went to Cabinet this morning with proposals to further amend the Bail Act, as I said. In particular, it is intended where persons are for the first time on this occasion charged with offenses in relation to prohibited weapons. Now, prohibited weapons is a special and recognized and defined group of items in the Firearms Act. It's not just a firearm, but the prohibited weapons deal with automatic firearms and hand grenades and missiles and weapons for, if you like, spewing, if you like, noxious substances. We got Cabinet's approval to take to Parliament an amendment to the Bail Act as it relates to those. So if a person is charged with possession, though for the first time, of a prohibited weapon, their bail should be restricted in accordance with the Bail Act. That is to say, for 120 days where the actual trial process has not yet begun. In addition to that, ladies and gentlemen, we have created in the last amendments to the Firearms Act the new offense of trafficking in firearms, akin to trafficking in the Dangerous Drugs Act. In this case, if you are caught with more than one firearm, you are deemed to have had them for the purpose of trafficking, much like a person who is caught with 1 kilogram of cocaine or over 1,000 grams of marijuana would have been deemed to have had it for the purpose of trafficking. So we now say, if you are charged for the offense of trafficking, though first time, because it involves your possession of more than one firearm, you too should experience a restriction in the normal bail arrangements as assured under the Constitution, and continue to be assured under the new arrangements of the Bail Amendment Act, because that would have been passed with the requisite specified majorities. And finally, ladies and gentlemen of the media, we are also happy to inform the Trinidad and Tobago public that the very horrendous circumstance of the infamous Section 34, where we discovered that persons were, where it was that persons could make an application to the court to have their matters thrown out, dispensed with, if no prosecution, no actual prosecution of the matter started within 10 years. We discovered, as we had to repeal that and treat with the problems that that led, that the schedule in that act, the Administration of Justice Indictable Offences Act, essentially the act to remove the preliminary inquiry, we identified that the schedule of offenses, Schedule 6, which listed the offenses for which you can make such an application, they were restricted usually or only to blood crimes, murder and rape and robbery and shootings and that kind of assault to the person. So we are happy to inform the public that upon further contemplation, we have now added and we got the Cabinet's approval this morning to, by way of an order, arrange the law such that all fraud offenses and financial crimes, white-collar crimes, would also become part of Schedule 6, such that if one is charged, he will not be able to have those kinds of matters dispensed with in accordance with that amendment. I thank you for your attention, and we are willing, of course, to take any questions you might have.
To the Bail Act that we talked about, it means we have to go back to Parliament.
Yes, indeed, it's an amendment to the law, and we will do so, and we are doing that in response to that recent development that I defined a while ago, where a man was, or persons were found with not one, not an ordinary firearm, a handgun, single burst, but an array, 9 of them, automatic weapons. And the society, through its parliamentarians, feel that such persons ought to be dealt with far more stringently. And as a consequence, we got Cabinet's approval to go back to the Parliament to make the adjustments as I have described them.
That needs to be looked into so that we don't miss something else. Because what happened is we went to Parliament, then the Commissioner of Police made this announcement. Well, hey, look, you missed this. Is there something that needs to be reevaluated once again, really take some time before going to the Parliament with this?
I don't think it's about that. I think law is an evolving thing. Law is a social science. The passage of laws has to reflect developments in the society, and that has always been the case in all societies. Here, we had a Firearm Amendment Act, we had the Bail Amendment Act, and they were in place, and then a new situation developed, and the society is responding to it through its parliamentarians in the way. And that can happen again tomorrow. It's an evolving thing, it's organic, and it grows in response to challenges that you face. It was CLR James very quickly who told us that we must be able as leaders to respond to the challenges as they arise.
Can I ask if there's any specification of what kind of masters, if someone comes with a master's in art history, does that put them on the same level as a master's in criminal justice? You know what I mean?
Well, I am not a person skilled in the business of accreditation, so I'll confine myself to saying to you a master's degree. And once one has a master's degree from a recognized university, accredited in terms, that, as far as I'm aware, would suffice. Today, policing requires all kinds of skill sets. Whatever is representative, if you like, as part of the human experience, since the police are dealing with human persons, at least presumably so, then all skill sets are necessary in dealing with an understanding of all skill sets in dealing with human persons and in particular policing them.
Did I add there? I just want to say,
What is the current qualification? Is it just a degree?
Yes. So it is now upgraded to master's degree for both office holders. The Minister of Education, I'm sorry, wanted to add something on that
I'm
point.
going to add something.
Yes.
Yes, actually, I just wanted to say, but of course, if someone has a degree in, a master's degree in related to law enforcement, then of course, you know, they will have an edge.
Before you go further, I just want to give an explanation here. We have in Trinidad the Accreditation Council of Trinidad and Tobago, and that organization has been tasked with the responsibility of accrediting degrees. What we have found in our system, unfortunately, is that there seems to be a plethora of degrees being conferred on persons, and therefore it is important for us to ensure that the degrees or the level of qualification that is required for that position is properly accredited by the Accreditation Council of Trinidad and Tobago.
Since you're here, can I ask you about the school services unit? Is it similar to the U.S. where there are truancy officers, the kind of officers who drive around and see children not in school, put them in a van, take them to school? Or is it that police officers are going to be assigned to schools? How does the school services unit of the TTB?
My understanding, it would be a blend of all of the above. You will have police officers involved. Very often schools invite police officers to come there to speak to the children, to attend to particular problems. And of course, there'll be elements of the civilian population working with them in the counseling field and other fields. My understanding, it will be a mixture of all of that.
Police officers in a school?
I can't say specifically whether they'll be armed or not, but what I do know is that the police will be there in this unit to deal with the particular issues as it relates to the services of the schools. Yes, sir?
Setting up this unit, so the gender-based unit?
Well, the cabinet approved all of these formalization of these specialized units today, and obviously on Cabinet's approval, it will be for the police administration to effect them promptly. The sort already informally exists, but now the formality is in place. Thank you.
Was there discussion before, so was this something that they asked you all to formalize in Cabinet, and they say, okay, well, listen, we're ready to go, or we're going to start from now looking for...
Yeah, we would have been in the Minister of National Security works directly with the police commissioner, and he, of course, I'm only acting as Minister of National Security now, but the Minister of National Security is in constant contact with the Commissioner of Police, and obviously this would have been as a result of consultations.
You say, just one, the school, I just want to wrap this up. Will you have any say in where or how these officers will be placed in schools? Are you in consultation with this unit?
We have had a request already from the Commissioner of Police to have a meeting with officers and officials of the Ministry of Education. And we'll be having that meeting sometime in the very near future, so we can iron out these things. The Commissioner of Police is very keen in having that discussion so that we can move to ensure that our schools continue to be safe.
Yes, sir.
Follow up to the adjustment of the minimum qualification. By chance, would you know how many senior officers currently have masters in
No, I'm unable to say, but that can easily be obtained. I can't say exactly how many officers. What I do know, and perhaps it's a very well-kept secret, there are many, many highly qualified officers throughout the ranks of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. In fact, all the uniform sections of national security, they are very highly qualified persons. And if you want to hold the office of Commissioner of Police or you want to hold the office of Deputy Commissioner, the minimum qualification going forward will be a master's degree. No, the matters that we dealt with today didn't touch and concern issues of salary, dealt specifically with qualification. The issue of salaries will have to be worked out later on by those who are so appointed to do.
Now, Cabinet normally has the legal authority to determine the qualifications of this post. I don't know, I just always thought it was the
Well, the proposal came, and you remember there's a special regime for the appointment of the Commissioner of Police. And the proposal came, and the Cabinet approved it. Of course, yes, through the Ministry of National Security, of course, yes.
What does the present Commissioner of Police have in terms of qualification? Does he have that master's?
I am unable to specifically say. I don't have his resume in front of me. I'm unable to say. But going forward, it would be required for both office holders.
Specialized investigations unit. Is this like a unit that will specify to homicides or any other?
I think it's general. It speaks of investigations generally. Of course, homicide investigations are just one aspect of that.
I just want to get you on something. The soldiers we have sent to assist in Bahamas, just want to find out, get an update on that, and if you have that information.
Yes, I do. I had consultation a moment ago with the Chief of Defense Staff, and in fact, you have some interesting insight here. The matter arose this morning as well, and we are advised, and we now share with you that the troops will be returning, 100 of them. They'll be returning on Monday afternoon, having performed certain specific duties. They provided aid to the civil powers in terms of security of the spaces around the Bahamas as required. They were involved in the distribution of relief supplies, and they were involved in an assessment of the levels of damage so as to assist the government of that country in their efforts to rebuild that devastated land following Dorian. So they are expected to return after tremendous and proud service in the Bahamas on Monday afternoon.
Minister Garcia, I want to get you on something came up in Senate last week. Minister West mentioned the World Bank report and the saying that as part of it, that the grade threshold was too high. Is this something that is going to be looked at? Did we need a review?
You are referring to the means testing, right, with respect to gates.
Yes.
What was reported in the newspaper, the first paragraph, was erroneous. The report really said that the levels that we have set are too low. In other words, what we're saying is that because they are too low, we are opening up to so many people, and therefore it should be higher. So that report was erroneous.
Well, in that case, are we looking at increasing the levels, or is there going to be any type of review?
Well, of course, everything is subject to review, and we'll be reviewing the gate requirements in the not-too-distant future.
I want to go back to the Anglican school. In the larger sense, when you have these protests, a lot of these protests for dilapidated schools, they do fall under a denominational board or something like that. And you find that the teachers or the parents protest the Ministry of Education, we want the minister to do something. Is it that you are saying that maybe it is time that they take those protests to their boards first and then go to the Ministry of Education? Or are you as the Minister of Education saying, well, this does fall under my purview and I take it?
Okay, let me answer your question by first of all stating that we operate a dual system of education in Trinidad and Tobago. By that I mean we have the involvement of the denominational boards and the government. The boards, they own the schools and they have direct responsibility for the maintenance and other aspects of the education system that fall under their portfolio. However, some years ago, there was an arrangement between the Ministry of Education or the government and the boards where things like repairs and building, construction and so on was shared. Under an arrangement, 1/3 would have been put forward by the boards and 2/3 would have been put forward by the government. Subsequent to that, a previous government has decided that the government will fund 100% all repairs, all maintenance, all aspects of construction of the schools. And therefore, the responsibility now falls on the shoulders of the Ministry of Education to finance these buildings, the construction, the refurbishment of our schools. What we have found, by and large, in our education system, first of all, we have in excess of 700 schools that we have to cater for. More than 50% of these schools are old, aged. As I demonstrated just now, the Claxton Bay Anglican School has been built more than 100 years ago. And therefore, it is necessary, as time goes on, for us to effect repairs and refurbishment, and in some cases, have the schools rebuilt. But whatever we do, we must do it with the concurrence of the boards, because in spite of the fact that we are now responsible for 100% of financing, we can do nothing unless we have the concurrence of the boards, because the boards own the schools.
Back to that 1/3, 2/3 arrangement?
I cannot say that. What I can say is that in meeting with some of the boards have expressed a desire and an interest to work out an arrangement where they will be able, or they can be able, to put forward some suggestions that will enable the repairs and the refurbishment and perhaps the construction of new schools to be done in a more efficient manner. By that I mean the boards themselves feel that they might have expertise, for example, in an area like project management, in the area of engineering and architectural competence, and they are willing to share that with the government in an effort to ensure that their schools are in a condition where learning and teaching can take place without any major interruptions.
But is it last previous government, is the last government or someone prior to?
No, a few years ago, it might be about 15 years ago, something like that, yes.
But does that prevent the boards from doing the work on their own? In other words, if they raise the money, can they, in fact?
Well, as I said before, the boards own the school. And if they, if they raise the money, if they want, they can do something, but they must do that. Whatever they do, it must be in concurrence with what the Ministry of Education would describe and would put in place for a school. And therefore, there must be discussions, collaborations. And this is why, as I said before, even in the case of the Claxton Bay Anglican School, the junior school, when we are having a visit tomorrow, the board will play a prominent part in that visit.
That change from 1/3, 2/3 to 100%, was that an act of parliament or just a cabinet decision?
It was a cabinet decision.
You rolled back if necessary.
You see, as I spoke just now about the relationship between the boards or the denominational boards and the government, that is circumscribed by the Concordat. And there in the Concordat spoke about the relationship in terms of financing. So that aspect of the Concordat was changed. Now, as you know, a Concordat is simply an agreement between the church and the state. So there's where the agreement was changed so that government will provide 100% financing.
Minister, sorry, Minister Garcia, on the larger issue of students being kept somewhere else other than the school that they were originally assigned to, that students being housed elsewhere, do you have a number of how many instances that we have? Because if it happens at Claxton Bay, it will be one of a few. Because we have the ship system in some areas, I think it's Princess now. And then we also have students being kept in temples, community centers. Do you have a number of how many of these instances we have?
Well, at this moment, I am unable to give you an exact number, but I want to make the point, and I think it is important for us to understand, in our education system, we manage in excess of 700 schools. So if there are 2 or 3 schools that temporarily have to exist on a shift system, I don't think we should be held over the coals for that. We do everything that is possible, that is within our reach, to ensure, first of all, that we have that collaboration with the boards that own the school, and 2, we want to ensure that the learning and the teaching conditions of our school are such that our students can benefit.
Brutal situation, because with shift systems, when you have one child going to the junior and one child going to the senior, and then you have a working parent here.
The shift system in those schools are only temporary measures in emergencies, because in the absence of such temporary measures, then the children will have to stay home. And we don't want our students to be deprived of an education. We have been saying in the education system that we are building our education system on 3 major planks. Quality education. We are determined to provide quality education. The other one is access. We want to make sure, and this is tied in more closely to the point, we want to make sure that our children, all our children, have access to the quality education that we are determined to provide. And thirdly, we want to make sure that there is done in an environment that is conducive to learning and teaching. And there's where the infrastructural aspect of it will be involved.
Okay, we just, you have one thing to say? I was just going to go with a final question.
Yeah, but before, I'm most grateful to you. Just before we do, and thank you very much, in answer to a question put by your colleague earlier, I have just had confirmation that the current Commissioner of Police, Mr. Gary Griffith, hard working and focused as he is the holder of a master's degree in security management, and that resolves your question. Thank you very much.
A final question, please.
Can I get an update on the Arima in school? What is the status of them? Are they still starting checking up there?
The update concerning the Arima in the school is that a benefactor, and I must refer to him as a benefactor, has offered his building free of charge to house all the students at the Arima Hindu School. When school reopened, I paid a visit, and I have been assured by the students and the teachers are operating in relative comfort. With respect to the construction of the new school, we are having discussions with the denominational board. As I keep saying, the boards own the school, so everything that we do must be in accordance with the wishes of the board, and we are continuing discussions where that is concerned.
Thank you very much.